Sosua versus Cartagena. Which is better? And now, the city of Cartagena and the town of Sosua do not actually have a lot in common. The city of Cartagena is a city of 1 million people. It has some important historical architecture and history, where the town of Sosua is an unremarkable little town on the north coast that if it did not have beaches and working girls, no one would ever have heard of it. So we're going to limit this conversation pretty much to which is a better place to go to meet working girls. From a tourist point of view, Cartagena has much more to offer, a fuller experience if you are interested in doing more touristic things other than just getting with chicas. Let me tell you a little bit about my experience in both countries, the Dominican Republic and Colombia. I had an apartment in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic for a few years and traveled almost exclusively to the Dominican Republic for about 5 years. I spent time in Puerto Plata, Santiago, and Sosua in the Dominican Republic. I have a good friend who built a house in Sosua. And I have talked to a lot of expats and people in the Dominican Republic about their experiences, both living there and with women. And as far as Colombia goes, I have been coming to Colombia, and specifically mostly Cartagena, for about 4 or 5 years, where I have had apartments in Cartagena for a few years with girlfriends in barrios outside of El Centro. And so I've had a lot of time in both countries. And so I feel like this gives me a good background in sharing my experiences and being able to give you advice about which country is better. Now, something that a lot of people don't consider is the history of tourism to a country and how that has affected and changed a country. For example, the Dominican Republic has been open to tourism for a long time. Many people, including lots of men, have been coming to the Dominican Republic for a long time to take advantage of the many attractions, the beaches, the women, etc. of the Dominican Republic. And so the Dominican Republic has, in turn, basically, its whole economy and mindset of many people is basically how to make tourism work for you. And so there is a mindset in the Dominican Republic that has come around from this huge influx of tourism for a very long time. Where Colombia, on the other hand, has been largely closed to tourism until very recently, maybe the last 10 years. The Pablo Escobar drug cartel days made Colombia one of the most dangerous countries in the world. And few tourists came here except maybe other Latin Americans. So tourism has not had a huge effect on the people and the attitudes of people in Colombia the way it has in the Dominican Republic. In touristy areas, yes, of course, people have changed because of the influx of tourism in the last 10 years in, Cartagena and Medellin. But outside of those areas, people are virtually untouched by tourism or the attitudes that come with sort of taking advantage of tourism and the tourists, which is basically the mentality in the Dominican Republic. And so the effects of tourism on a country can be good and bad. And in the Dominican Republic, there is a mindset that tourism is a huge industry and that people have learned basically how to work that system. Now, for example, in the Dominican Republic, it is pretty much routine for taxi drivers who pick you up at the airport or anywhere to ask for a tip. Where I have never had a taxi driver in Colombia ask me for a tip. And so the effects of long-term tourism on the Dominican Republic have created a mindset where people are basically have learned how to manipulate the system and manipulate the tourists to try to get as much money out of you as possible. I've had, experiences with taxi drivers, in barber shops, etc. And I've never had those type of experiences here in Colombia. Yes, in Cartagena, there is gaming the tourists to a large degree, but it's much less so than in the Dominican Republic, I find. And so since the focus of this video is about the experience of getting with working girls in both Cartagena, Colombia, and Sosua, the Dominican Republic, let me focus on that and how a long history of tourism has changed the people, and specifically the women of the Dominican Republic and Colombia, and how that affects you going there to get with women. Now, in the Dominican Republic, this mindset, which I call gaming the gringos, has been going on for a long time. And it is part of basically the education of working girls, basically how to manipulate as much money out of you as possible in the Dominican Republic. And let me tell you, here in Cartagena, in 4 years, and I've had a girlfriend for part of the time, but I have been with other women, and I have talked to lots and lots of tourists here, including men who have come here for female companionship, and I have heard very few stories of men feeling like they were manipulated and or gamed by women. While there are scams that go on here, they are usually larger scale scams like trying to drug you. But in most cases, those things happen because men come here and they put themselves in vulnerable positions because they have not educated themselves before they came here in the first place. So here in Colombia, there is more of a danger of large scale sort of scams, you getting drugged and your credit cards being fleeced. But that happens very rarely, and it happens to men who are not using the proper safety protocols. Where in the Dominican Republic, it is much more likely that you're going to get scammed on a small time scam by every chica you are with. Chicas who every single one are going to try and use every opportunity to get money out of you. Where I have found that almost never happens here in Cartagena. And so let's talk about the most common scams in both places. First, let's start with Sosua. Okay, so in Sosua, basically, since there is a longer history of tourism, people are basically, and specifically working girls, are trained on, how to manipulate men to, basically get as much money as possible to work the system. These women have learned how to basically use emotions, sympathies, drama to try and get as much money out of you as possible. For example, the last time I was in Sosua, I was staying at Hotel Europa, and I went out onto the balcony of my hotel room in the afternoon, and there was an African-American guy standing on the balcony from the next room. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Oh, I'm waiting for the police to come." I said, "You're waiting for the police to come for what?" He said, "Oh, well, the chica came here and she basically is not willing to do what she agreed to do, and yet she wants the money that we agreed upon." Now, he was having none of that, and he was not going to pay her. And he was waiting for the police to come to resolve that situation. Now, it is extremely common in the Dominican Republic, and especially in Sosua, for women to basically create drama to try and get as much money out of you as possible. And basically the strategy is that if a woman creates drama in a hotel or hotel room, that most men are going to not want to deal with that drama and will basically pay up and just to get rid of the chica. Now, this guy was not having any of it, and he was waiting for the police to come to resolve the situation. But this is so common in the Dominican Republic, it is almost with every chica you're going to have. Now, I find it is a lot less in Santo Domingo, where women are not really as trained to basically manipulate you as the women who are coming to Sosua. So in Sosua, creating drama and trying to manipulate money out of you is par for the course and is almost normal behavior. I have met many men here in Cartagena who have come to Cartagena after having terrible and sometimes scary experiences in Sosua and the Dominican Republic with women. Now let's talk about Cartagena and Colombia in general. While scopolamine poisoning or drugging is a fairly common thing throughout Colombia, it mostly happens with tourists and oftentimes happens with tourists getting with working girls. But in most cases that happens because men are not following the proper protocols. Recently a man was who came here from the United States, and he met with a chica he met online. He went out to meet her in the parking lot of the Hilton Hotel where he was staying and got into a Uber taxi with her, where a few blocks away, a bunch of armed guys got in and basically took him for a ride. And they, tried to empty his bank accounts and whatever and left him in the woods, safe and sound. So he got a good scare. But, the reason this happened largely was because he, did not follow the proper safety protocols. Now, this man does not speak Spanish. He is not familiar with life in Colombia. And yet he is coming here and trying to get with strangers, So regardless of how beautiful any girl is, she is a stranger and you don't know anything about her. So the first time you come here, and if you are staying especially at a nice hotel like the Hilton has lots of safety protocols. A person is going to have to present their identification. He's going to be on camera. And, so the first time you get with anybody, you want to make sure that you have seen their identification, and you are using every safety protocol possible, especially in a nice hotel, to protect yourself. So, for instance, it is much less likely that a woman is going to come to your hotel room after presenting her identification and being on video camera and then drugging you, because there is going to be a lot of evidence against her already. Okay, so you want to use all the safety protocols possible if you are new to Colombia and not familiar with the way of life in places like Colombia, where, there was a lot of poverty and there was a lot of desperation. And so this leads to people trying to figure out ingenious ways to try to scam money out of people. So if you are safe, if you are careful, it is very unlikely that you are going to get scopolamine. You do not want to create routines. If you want to go out at night and drink, you do not want to be doing that alone. You want to go to places where you are familiar with people. You want to be using every safety protocol possible if you are new to Colombia and don't know what's going on. That is how you protect yourself. So in most cases, men get scopolamine because they let their guard down. You do not just go with strangers. You be careful who is giving you drinks. It's always better to play it safe than it is for you to have some risky behavior. And so the danger in Colombia is not so much that women are going to try to scam money out of you, as much as that there's going to be larger scams of drugging you and, possibly, carnapping you and trying to get money out of your credit card. But if you were smart in the first place, that would never happen. Where in the Dominican Republic, there is almost no way to avoid a chica trying to scam money out of you. because basically it's a par for the course in Sosua for women to use every manipulation possible to try and get money out of you. So let me sum this up. So in the Dominican Republic, and most likely in Sosua, it is much more likely for you to be scammed by women. Even if you come to an agreement, even if you take her to a hotel, it is extremely common for women try to scam money out of you and do as little as possible, or not even do what you agreed upon in the first place. And also for taxi drivers and other people to try and scam money out of you. Where in Colombia, and specifically Cartagena, where I have the most experience, it is much less likely. I mean, there are people here who try to sell you trinkets all day, and this is very annoying, on the beaches, it is also annoying. But as far as getting with working girls, it is more likely that women are going to honor the agreements they have made with you, and that they are, if you treat them well, are going to treat you well. And so, and yes, it is possible for you to be drugged or other things, but if you use every safety protocol, it is very unlikely that that is going to happen. So basically, to sum this up, I would say that the experience of getting with women is much better in Colombia and Cartagena than it is in Sosua specifically, where the mentality is to try and just, get money out of you as much as possible. For example, going to the beach here. Cartagena is a beach town, essentially. And if you wanted to go to a beach with a chica and she liked you and you were nice, you know what? You take her by her lunch and go, and she'll go to the beach with you. In Sosua, you know what? It is just, everything is about money, and you just feel like, nobody is human to you unless you actually pay them. So in general, it's a much inferior experience in the Dominican Republic and Sosua, in my personal opinion. It is very hard to know who to trust in the Dominican Republic.